subject of the day is that I am converting a stove from an electric stove that used to be right here. As you can see, that is the 30 amp circuit that was connecting to the stove, 220 volts. Now I'm converting the stove from electric to gas. I'm connecting this 24-inch stove right here. The valve that the gas gets connected to is right there on the right rear of the 24-inch stove. This is the flex pipe that we're going to be using for this installation. This roll is a 25-foot roll. Also comes in 50-foot roll and a 100-foot roll. I'm not sure if it comes any larger than a 100-foot roll. I haven't looked into it. I haven't needed it at this point. But this 25-foot roll, as you can see, is more than enough for the installation that I need for this conversion. This flex pipe, as you can see, has the core is a stainless steel material. This is the part that is going to be doing all the holding of the gas and the conduction of the gas. As you can see, it has a certain amount of flexibility. You cannot make very tight turns with this, but it does have flexibility, and it is a lot faster to work with this material than it is with black threaded pipe. So the outside part of this material is a nylon material. It's very strong. It withstands scratches and it withstands chafing. In addition to the pipe, we have several other pieces that are going to be used throughout this installation. The first piece is going to be this type of a flange that connects to the wall, to the exterior part of the wall, like so. And this part over here is going to have an elbow connected to it. On that elbow, there's going to be a shutoff valve connected to that. And on this shutoff valve, there's going to be an additional 48-inch flex pipe that's going to be connected to the stove itself. In the back of this flange, there's going to be the flex pipe itself that is going to be fed through the wall. And this pipe is going to go in back of this flange like so. With this type of a pipe, and to make a good seal inside here, we're going to use this type of a retainer. It comes from the manufacturer. We install it on this last valley here of the pipe after it's cut nice and clean. We're going to install it on this last valley, and we're going to crimp it with a pair of pliers, as you shall see later on. In addition to these two components, we're going to need an end piece to connect to the 3/4 inch by a 1/2 inch black elbow. And that is this connector right here. It's an adapter connector. The flex pipe connects to the back of this. And we're going to utilize this piece to do the final connection to the house supply. In addition, once you are done with all the installation with this flex pipe, we're going to need retainers like this, similar to this. These type of retainers are going to be snapped over the pipe, and generally we're going to catch the joist or whatever wood surface that this pipe is going to be close to. And we're going to nail it, and this is going to be held fairly sturdy. Before we start taking apart any kind of gas plumbing, we first got to make sure to be safe. So safety comes first before anything else. In this case over here, since I don't have a valve near the area that I'm working on, the next best thing that we got to do is to make sure that we close the main gas. In this case, the gas is outside. So we have two types of wrenches that we could use, or there's a third one besides these two. One is a pair of channel logs, nothing fancy, or we could use just an adjustable wrench. We don't have either one of these. we could use a regular plumbing wrench. We're going to use the adjustable one. We adjust it to size to fit nice and snug. And this valve right here, when it says vertical position perpendicular to the pipe, it means that it's open. We need to make it horizontal. Once the valve is horizontal, it is closed. Now it is safe to go to work and start taking plumbing apart. When we're done with everything, we'll open it back up again. In order for us to make the final connection to the house gas, we need to take the flex pipe that we installed in the ceiling. This pipe right here, it's gonna be connected to a T connection here, as you can see. And this T connection, we're gonna move it to this location here, and we're gonna tap into the original house gas. Once we do that, let's talk about threads for a minute. There's a couple of different type of threads that are used in plumbing. This type of thread right here, as you can see on the right side, it's more or less, or it is, a straight thread. On the other side, it is a cone thread, is a tapered thread. This type of thread goes in plumbing, such as this black T over here. It screws in and it kind of stops because the conical thread doesn't allow it to go any further. What makes this type of a thread seal on this type of pipe over here is the tapered of the threads. Same thing as this one here, as you can see. This over here is tapered. This side over here is not. Let's go back to this one over here. On the part over here that is not tapered, the thread, or whatever I'm threading into it, in this case this fitting, goes all the way in without a problem. The reason is because the actual seal in the pipe is made by this washer right here. In this case over here, that requires the flex pipe for a gas stove, which I'll show you in a little bit. The sealing part is not the thread. The threads are only there to hold. The seal is this flare piece right here. The other side, which is a cone-shaped thread, this over here requires sealant, something like this. This particular sealant is called Teflon paste. This Teflon paste happens to be one of my favorite. It has never let me down. It seals all the time. I've never had a leak. So you put a reasonable amount of Teflon paste on the threads. Cover them liberally. Don't be cheap on this stuff. This is the best money you'll ever spend when it comes to sealing. So you start the threading with your hands. Never use a wrench to start threading. Once you get to a point where you can't tighten up anymore, then you would use a pipe wrench. Put it on this end, the pipe wrench, and then with either an adjustable wrench like this, you start tightening like so until the fitting is nice and tight. If you don't have a adjustable wrench like this, you could use another pipe wrench like this, and you make your seal by tightening with the two pipe wrenches together. In the final stage of connecting the flex pipe to the 3/4 inch by a 1/2 inch T, we need to temporarily connect this flange and the adapter nut to the 1/2 inch opening of the 3/4 inch T. We temporarily screw this in. We don't tighten it. No Teflon paste, just as it is. We're gonna take the flex pipe and we're gonna push it back a little bit, as much as we can, to give us a little bit of play. Gonna take a Sharpie and mark the area where we're gonna cut it. So this next step over here, I'm gonna demonstrate on a piece of pipe on how to cut this flex pipe properly. This makes it a little bit easier to learn how to cut it. You should practice on a piece of pipe that is a pretty much waste, extra piece. So I'm gonna make a mark. Now the best way to cut this over here, assuming this is the mark where I need to cut, the best way to cut this is gonna be by scoring the yellow jacket 2 valleys over from the actual cut is gonna be. So I'm gonna cut right here. And I'm gonna cut right here. So that's a total of 4 valleys here, leaving the center where I gotta cut. Reason behind that is when I was cutting it with the yellow jacket on, according to the manufacturer, what was happening is it was making on the ends over here too much of a splinter, so to speak, burring. So the burrs not very good for making a good seal. So to make a good seal, it took a few tries, but the best way to do it is by eliminating the yellow jacket where you're actually putting the cutter. So we're gonna take the jacket off here, like so. Easy with the utility knife. We're gonna expose the area of where we actually gonna cut. And we're gonna use a pipe cutting tool to cut this. Make sure you put it on the right valley. Right? And we give it a little snug. And we start cutting. Turn it a couple of times. Snug a little more. And you're going to start hearing the actual cutting. Now you just noticed this piece fall right out. That is what we want to see. That is exactly what we want to see falling right out with a nice smooth edging. Another tip about the cutting tool that we use. In this case over here we're using a small, or I should say a medium pipe wrench cutter. This is a rigid 3/16 to 1 1/8 inch. Could cut a pretty large pipe all the way down to a 3/16 pipe. So I had the old blade right here, as you can see. This blade is still pretty good, not that bad. But this is still a good blade for heavy pipes, such as black pipe, galvanized pipe, or even brass pipe. However, this type of material here, as you could see, is very thin-walled. So when it's very thin-walled like that, this blade wasn't cutting nearly as good as when it was new. So, and it was leaving a lot of burrs, especially when I was finishing the cut. So what I wound up doing was I purchased a brand new blade, such as this one here, installed it simply by removing this screw right here. I'm going to simulate it, or I'm actually going to take it apart, so in case you need to replace your own. Right? So this would have been the old one. Right? This would have been the old one. Unscrew, take the old one out, put the new one in, like so. Line up the hole as best as possible. Center it with the pin. Make sure that the pin is all the way in. And always catch screws with your hands whenever possible. So in this case, I already caught at least 1.5 threads. We're going to tighten it up. This screw does not have to be extremely tight. Just by using a good screwdriver, just a good snug is more than enough. Make sure that the blade spins. And now we're ready to make an additional cut if we want to. As you can see, I made a whole bunch of cuts to make sure that I would get this right. So all of these over here, they all had some sort of imperfection with the ends at one point or another. I don't know if you could see them or not, but this one over here was almost right, but as you could see, it did not cut all the way through and through. And one of the reasons I found out, it was because of I left this piece of plastic over here. So when I finally decided to take off 4 valleys worth of plastic after I marked the area where I was cutting, this is the result that I got. It's beautiful, clean cut, ready to go. All I had to do was just take a little bit of emery cloth, just sand down the sharp edges here on both sides and mount it up, and that was the end of that. This is the final stage, connecting the flex pipe to the house gas. We're going to take this flange and put it inside the pipe like so. We're going to get it out of the way for now. Then we're going to take the retainer ring and we're going to put it on the tip over here like this, on the first valley that we cut open right there, that we made sure that this end over here is nice and smooth. Gonna take standard regular pair of pliers and crush it slightly Now we're going to take the fitting, we're going to put some dope at the end or some Teflon paste, and we're going to screw it in here in the house supply pipe. We're going to tighten it up. Like so. Then we're gonna take the pipe with the retainer ring. We're gonna straighten out the pipe, making it perpendicular to the house pipe. Make sure there is no kinks. Everything is nice and straight as possible. And we are gonna screw in the flange into the fitting. Keep in mind, push this forward, push the flex pipe forward. Tighten it up with your hands as much as possible. Now we're going to take our adjustable wrench and tighten it up according to the manufacturer is looking for 62 foot-pounds of pressure. Of course, this is going to require a special torque wrench, but being a mechanic for 40 years, I have an idea what 62 pounds of torque feels like. Unfortunately, I don't have an actual torque wrench to show you, but you get the idea. I would have to say that is more than adequate torque. At this point, we'd leave it go. We make our final inspection, and then we'll get back to this, and we finally turn the gas on. We're going to make sure that we check it for leaks. As you can see here, I added an additional ball cock valve. This is a 1/2 inch ball cock valve because we have used all 1/2 inch plumbing over here. The 1/2 inch plumbing went into a 3/4 inch T with a reducer to a 1/2 inch. This ball cock valve is not really necessary, but I'm a little overcautious. Besides, this is my house, and I would do the same thing even if it was a customer's house. Making sure to play a little bit of extra safety doesn't hurt. So this valve, when it's stove, it's not in use for long periods of time, I could just simply turn it off, or if I have to do some servicing downstream of this pipe, I don't have to worry about shutting the entire gas in the house. So I'll just turn this off and do my work. Once I do my work, turn the gas back on, check for leaks, and that makes life a lot easier. So once you're done with the flex piping installation, make the final connections, we need to put on these holders or retainers that simply snap on like this, and we hammer them into the joist. And we put these in every joist. This way there is no possibility of anything coming loose in the years to come. Alright, let's make our final connection on the stove, and this should be it. Right after this, we're just going to check it for leaks, and we're ready to rock and roll. Fire this bad boy up. So touch up a little bit of Teflon paste. Get rid of the excess, and let's put it back. Let's put it in there. Got to make sure that when we put these connectors on to places like the stove, because this pipe over here is pretty flexible to just a light aluminum. So we're going to hold on to the body with a wrench, and with the other wrench we're going to tighten it up. As I said previously, whenever you have threads that are tapered, it's going to require some thread pipe sealing. In this case, because the threads are pretty much straight and the sealing is done by the tips over here and into the aluminum here, you don't need thread sealant here. So we just line it up nice and straight, catch it, Sometimes you need to go backwards with the threads counterclockwise until you catch the threads. Once you catch the threads, tighten it up. Hold the fitting with one wrench. And with the other wrench, we tighten it into position. And we're pretty much done here. Now we just got to check it for leaks, and let's call it a day. This is the finished gas connection on the wall, or coming out of the wall, I should say. As you can see there on the left side, there is the brass connection into the flex pipe behind the wall. Coming out of the brass connection, there is a 1/2 inch street black elbow. Onto the street black elbow, there is the ball cock valve, the little valve with the yellow handle. That is the on and off valve. Connected to the right of that, as you can see, is the yellow 48-inch flexible pipe that connects to the stove. Finally, final connection is at the stove right here. So now that all the plumbing is done and everything is double checked and triple checked sometimes, we go over once more everything. We're going to turn the gas on. Once we turn the gas on, we're going to go back to the plumbing and check for leaks for final inspection. Remember, the gas on is when this valve is perpendicular to the pipe. Once it is in this position, the gas is on. So please make sure that all the plumbing that you are working on is intact before ever attempting this to turn the gas on. So now I think I'm very confident about this job, and let's go check the rest of the plumbing for leaks. So now that we opened up the main gas, I'm going to spray some soap and water on all the fittings. Make sure that there is no bubbling anywhere. We're also going to check this fitting over here. Got no bubbling. We're good. Let's move on to the rest of the fittings. Final inspection at the main connection. Make sure that there is no bubbles, and even from the back, looks good. This extra valve over here is a good thing. Little overkill, but you could never have enough safety. As a final step, when pushing the stove in, you must make sure that the pipe is routed properly and it's not kinking anywhere, because if it kinks somewhere, we're gonna have a problem. So, and of course the final test is gonna be, voila, the burners are working. If the burners are working without any leaks, we have succeeded. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you got a lot out of it. Don't forget to press the like button, subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more videos to come.